Now that we have our permissions pretty much already taken care of, I do want to start working on the roles. But before we can work on the roles, there is one little thing that we had an issue with in the previous part of this series where we had Sweet Alert working. Sweet Alert works fine. The only thing about Sweet Alert was that we had to manually color this in. If we delete, then there's this darker one here. And I do want it to have the white background, and I don't want to manually put this in here. The other thing about that is that I do want to pull this out so that it's not in the permissions index template. So let's go ahead and do that before we get to roles. First things first, if we go to the permissions index and we go all the way down to the bottom where we're displaying this, we can now get rid of this because we're not going to be needing that. So we'll do that first, and then we'll go over to the admin.blade.php. And what I have here is I have dark mode in this body class here, and we don't actually need this dark mode in the body class. I'm going to put it in the layout. And the reason is because our layout is where everything is kind of happening. In this div wrapper here, I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right in there. And that should keep it so that we still have that color. So let's just go and make sure that those colors are working fine, and then we'll extract it. So I'm going to go ahead, create. So our color is the way it's supposed to be. And now if we go ahead and delete, then it is back to that white. So we've just pulled that color into the inside so it doesn't mess up what's going on with this Sweet Alert. I've gone ahead and deleted that. Let's go back and separate this a little bit. Now to do this, it's going to be really simple. I'm just going to go ahead and grab it from this permissions index here. And I'm just going to go up to our CSS folder, which is housing all of our CSS. I'm just going to paste it in here. We could also put this in the admin layout template, but I really prefer to have the CSS in its own where it's supposed to go. So here we can come back and we can remove this, and nothing should have changed. Let's just go and take a look and make sure. Okay, go ahead, refresh that just in case. We'll go ahead and create. That's working the way it's supposed to, and then we can go ahead and delete it. And we still have our white background on that modal. Let's go ahead and start working on permissions and dealing with that. And I do want to make another link to that as well. And that's something that we will also take care of today. Now to start this off, we already have a model. If you've been following along with the series, then when we installed LARATRUST, we did end up coming back with some models that it comes with. We have one right here, which doesn't have anything really going on in it. That's absolutely fine. But I'm going to grab this cast of created at, and that's something that I'm going to put in that as well. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it in our role model just so that we have it already set up and ready to go. Now, the other thing is that we do have the migration, so we don't have to worry about that. The only thing we really need is a controller so that we can make calls to those functions. And that's something that we can go ahead and create. I'm going to open up the terminal. And it should be in the admin folder. Let's go and take a look at that really quick, just to be sure. Admin. This will be the role controller. And I do want to make it resourceful. And I also want to attach it to that role model that we have. So role will be the name of the model, and that should be good. Let's close this. And as you can see, now we have the role controller here. And it is resourceful, and the role has been brought into those functions just by the virtue of running that command there. Before we get into this, let's start with the route. And I'm going to copy this one. We'll take care of all of these routes later on. Right now, I just want to get everything working. This will be roles. The route will be /admin/roles. This will be role controller. This will be index, admin, permissions. This will be changed to roles. And we need to import this up top here. So this will be role controller. For now, that's good. Let's just go over to the role controller. For right now, I just want to be able to get these roles to be displayed on our front end. We're going to do return inertia render should be admin roles index. And here I am going to just create some brackets here because we are going to have it in an array. We're also going to need to bring in permissions at some point so that we can loop over them and attach them to these roles. But for now, I just want to say roles. I just want to see them. So we're not going to get too fancy about how we do this. We just want to be able to see them on the front end. So then we can come here and I'm going to close this out. For right now, I am going to make a folder called roles, and then we'll have index.view in here, paste that in, and then I'm going to grab the script. I'm going to copy that from there as well, and I'm going to use it, and I'm just going to paste it in here for right now. Let's change what we need to change. These props are going to be roles. And for right now, I don't want to deal with any of this. I just want to be able to see it on the front end. Here we'll do roles. And for now, again, I don't want to worry about the button. I just want to see what we have. This is going to be props.roles. And for right now, I'm just going to hide these buttons. And then for the modal, we'll just hide that just so that we can see them. Let's head into the browser and see what we see. Before we do that, let's go over to the sidebar and add that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab, I'm going to grab it from here and I'm going to paste it here. And this we can just go ahead and change to roles. Same thing for this one, roles. I'm going to save that. We'll go to the browser and see if we see roles in here. We should be able to click there, and now we have our roles. And if we click it, as you can see, we do have them here. Good. Everything is looking good so far. A couple of things that I do want to address. We're going to need to bring in permissions, so we'll take care of that as well before we deal with the modal. So let's go ahead and get the permissions out, and then we can start working on dealing with the CRUD for these roles. Now back in here, we can go back to the role controller. And something I want to do too before I forget is that since we are using a different root view, I do want to make sure that that is in here. And we're also going to add permissions. We'll go ahead and import it. And then for now, I do want to just get. We will adjust this in a bit, but for now, that's pretty good. So let's go to the roles index. And we'll make sure to add that in here. Why don't we start with getting a button to display? We're going to use the same logic here where we open the modal using that button. And then from here, I'm just going to uncomment all of this. And then we'll deal with the permissions in a bit. But for now, I'm just going to create another form group. And instead of doing all this here just yet, I'm going to comment these out just so that we know that there's a place for it. So let's come up here and let's start with this stuff, which is the ID, name, display name, description, because all of that is part of it. We can keep the edited mode, edited index. The form title will be create new role. Button text, this will be the same. Check mode will be permission create role. Now we haven't created these functions in the back end yet. We'll do that in a bit, but for now, this is just how it's going to be. Open modal, close modal. Those will be the same. For now, I'm going to comment that out just so that we don't get a weird error for that. But the Slugify will be the same. And for the permissions, instead of actually doing anything for them yet, I'm just going to have them here so that we don't throw up a weird error saying that we don't have them. And this is going to be create permission. This is not going to be create permission. This is going to be create role, just so that we have the functions in there. And the same thing for this one, edit role. And delete permission will be delete role. Just say delete role, just so that we have it basic scaffolding set up for that. Here we can go ahead and comment that out, props roles. For now, let's just see what we have. Okay, so we have our button here, create new role with the name slug, the description, perfect. We have edit with the fields filled in. And then we also have delete, which we haven't hooked anything up to that yet, which is absolutely fine. Why don't we start very simply? We'll just start with the create. So that's going to be very simple. We'll just go to the web route and then we'll add that route. This will be post. This will be store. And then this one will be store. So at least we have it set up. We'll go to the role controller. And we'll come down here. All I want to do for right now is just to die and dump, just to see what we'll be getting from the request all. Don't forget, we already have the permissions coming in. We're going to use a package to handle the permissions, but for right this second, just know that that's what that is. We have our store function set up, and we can come over here and we can close this. I don't really need this. Close that. Let's take a look at what's going on in here. Before we get into pulling in a package, I do want to come up to our table here, and I do want to create a section for that. So we'll go ahead and we'll put it under the description here. We'll say permissions, and this way we'll have that title for the field. And then we're going to put in our form right here. So let's go and take a look at the package that I want to use. We'll go ahead and save that, and then we'll come back here and use that. Now, when I previous did this series, we were just sort of transitioning to Vue 3. This package, which is Vue-Multiselect, is the one that I wanted to use for that, but because it hadn't updated to be able to work with Vue 3 all that well, I opted for a different package that is based off of this one. Now, this is a very cool package because it allows you to create a drop-down where you can have all of these different things in it. You can select, you can multi-select, and that's what we're going to be using for these roles, because all the roles are going to have multiple sets of permissions. That's essentially what it's going to look like. As you can see, you can have the option to also do single drop-downs, single multi-selects drop-downs. You can make them searchable, tagging. There's Ajax support, UX support. It's fully configurable. And there are no dependencies, which is another reason why I do like this package, even though we couldn't use it last time, which the other one was essentially the same. There's no real drawback to using either, but this is the one that I wanted to use. Now for this one, you are going to be needing to use Vue 3.0. Even though the documentation is similar, this is the documentation for Vue 3. There are a few different ways to install it. You can do it through npm in this way, or you can use the CDN. We are going to be installing it directly into our package, so I'm going to grab that. And how we would use it is to basically pull it into the back end from the front end as a component, and then this component we can use on the front end to handle what it looks like, what information is in it, and all of that good stuff. And I also have to remember to bring this in as well, because that is something that is needed. We're going to go ahead and install it and then take it from there. So here I am going to open up a terminal. And I do need to add sail in front of this since that is what I am using, but this will bring it into the project. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead, exit out of that. And then from the documentation, we are going to import it, and then we are going to use it on the front end. So I'm going to go ahead, grab the CSS so that we can bring that in as well. Okay, let's go to the admin.js. And here we'll do import. I am going to call this one Vue-Multiselect from Vue-Multiselect. And then I'm also going to import the CSS. So that we have it in there. And then here we can do, well, no, this isn't going to be a use. This is going to be component. Vue-Multiselect. Vue-Multiselect. Doesn't really matter what you name it, just as long as you're bringing in the correct items. I'll make some space for that up there. And then I'll save this. And let's go ahead and use it in our roles index. So this is how we would be using it. We would have a V model, the value that it's returning null, and then we have options, which are going to be our permissions. That's all that it is. That's how we're going to use it. That's the way it's going to work. So let's start to think about how we're going to bring this in. Well, we have some values in here, and I'm actually going to bring this up just because it's a little easier to read for me. Go ahead, bring that up. And then we can create another variable. This one I'm going to call permission options equals props dot permissions. We're assigning the props that we're bringing in from the server, and we are assigning it to this permission options variable so that we can use it in this template, which means that now in our form, we can do something called selected permissions. And for now, we'll just set that to an empty array. What's going to happen is all of the permissions that we pick for any particular role, we can now use this form selected permissions in order to send that back to the backend saying that these are the ones that we're selecting. That's where we're going to have this variable in here. Now, if we go down a bit and we go to open edit, we're going to put this edited index value back, but instead of props permissions, this one is going to be roles index of, well, item. That's what we're looping over in the table. Edit mode value equals true. We have our item display description, but don't forget we just added another field, which is the selected permissions. I'm going to copy that. This one is going to be selected permissions. And now this one is going to be item permissions, because when we're looping over the items, we're going to make sure that those permissions are attached to those items. We'll go deal with that in the controller in a minute, but for now, just understand when we're looping over the roles, we are going to make sure that the permissions themselves are attached to those roles so that we can make changes to them while they're being displayed. So that one is done. We have the name slug, slugify, that's all the same. Then we have create role, edit role. That should be good. So let's set this up so that we can go ahead. We're going to send this to the backend. Admin role store, preserve scroll equals true. We'll close modal. We'll fire off the toast. And this will be new role created. So the very first one that we have set up is create role. This is the first active role that we're going to have. We have our permissions in here, but one thing that we didn't do was to loop over them. We'll do that in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it under this description here. I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to get rid of this item description in here. And then I want to div with the class of, let's say, dflex, and then flex column so that we can have a nice little column to display them in. In this, there's going to be a span. I'm going to open that up. And now we're going to loop over each of the individual roles. We're going to loop over the permissions that we're going to be putting in. We'll do v4. This is going to be for the permission index in instead of items here, we're going to have it item permissions. The key index will be the same. And now in here, we can just call it permission name. So then we have everything else looking good here. Let's go and sort this out so that we can see those permissions on the front end. So we'll go over to the controller. And in here, this is where I'm going to put it. Now, I normally would put this in the models. I have been taking more of a stance that I should put it in the controllers themselves so that basically you can make it more global and more dynamic and say, for every time we display the roles, we also want the permissions. However, that's a lot of calls to the back end. So what I have decided to start doing was to handle that in the controller. And this way we can have more control over where these permissions are coming through that belong to these roles. So when we do have the roles being listed, then I want to say with permissions. Let's go and just see that we can see these permissions for these individual roles, and then we'll come back to this and delve more deeply into this. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And as you can see, we are seeing all of the roles attached to each of the individual permissions. And this is exactly what I wanted. Cool. So let's start working on this so that we can create the role with these permissions. So from here, we can go back to the roles index. And we have our table up there. We have our modal down here. And this is where we decided we were going to put the permissions. We have our form group here. And now here we can go ahead and I'm going to just put it here for right now. We're going to use our Vue-Multiselect component that we just created when we installed the Vue-Multiselect. And I'm also going to close it off so that we can insert what we're going to need here. Actually, I don't need the space here, but I do need this. Since we're going to be submitting this with the form, we're going to need a vModel on it. And this vModel is going to be the form selected permissions. That's what we created before. And that's what it's going to be modeling after. The options that we're going to use are going to be the permission options, which are the list of permissions that we have coming in from the backend. It's coming in from the controller, and that's the variable that we first set up when we came in here. The other thing is I want to do multiple equals true. All this is saying is that we'll be able to have multiple. It's not just going to be a one-off permission. It's going to have multiple permissions that go back with this form for these roles. Another option that we have is to make it taggable, which will make it have that nice little sort of like green symbol to show that it's been selected. We saw it in the example, right? If we come back to the documentation and we go up to the example, these are tags. How you see it here, some different CSS frameworks or what have you will call these chips. They call it different things. In this sense, it's just saying that it is taggable, that these are tags and that these are what we can add to this dropdown. Then we can also put a label, and the label is just going to say name so that it is permission name. Then there's another option on here to track by equals ID. Because we're doing a multi-select, because we are associating this with the roles, we do need to know which permissions that we've chosen are going to be sent back, and how we're going to track that is by the ID. The other thing is I also want to make this required. And I'll add required to the other ones as well. But for now, just know that that one's going to be required. We can also do a placeholder here. I'll just say pick some permissions. I'm going to save that. Let's go and see if we can see this for the role creation. So let's try to create. So as you can see, we have our nice little drop down in here where we have these are the permissions that we have already set up. And if we go and select one, we can select multiple ones. If we want to remove them from here, then we can do that as well. That's pretty cool. Here's our label in here. I also want to make a label so that we have it like we do up here, saying that these are permissions. And I'm just going to grab this from here and I'm going to put it up here. label for permissions. This one is going to be, we have it for description, but I'm going to put selected permissions here because we are going to have validation on this as well. And then here will also be permissions. We can even have our validation in here. So this is going to be selected permissions. That's done. Let's try to see what we get back from this when we send it to the backend. We'll go ahead, create. We'll go ahead, fill those in. We'll pick some of these. Create. Please fill out this field. Okay, let me take off that required so that we don't get that. Okay, let's try it again. Go pick another one, send it to the backend. As you can see, we have ID, name, display name, description. And then for the permissions, we did select 3, and those 3 are being brought into our form on the backend. Very, very cool. Let's go and set this up so that we can create this role for real. Now to start us off, I'm just going to go to the permission controller and then we'll just copy over that information. So we'll grab the validate as well. Let's come in here and let's come down to there. We have request validate. We have a max of 25. The display name is going to be required, max 25, but it is going to be unique to the roles table. The description is going to be the same. Come down here and we'll also add selected permissions to these. We'll say that that equals required. Well, it'll just be required. Now, the other thing is we don't actually have a specific message for these permissions. So when it comes back from the server saying we don't actually pick any permissions and it comes back that we don't have a permission, we don't want it to say the selected permissions field is not required. I do want it to just say the permissions field is not required. So we can customize that right in here. I'm going to open that and then I'll say selected permissions required. I'm going to put an open single quote on that. And then for the message for that is just going to be the permissions field is required. We could also make this global, not really that big a deal. We can just do it right in the controller here. It's only a one-off for this one. So now we need to handle a couple of things. The first thing that we need to handle is to change this to role because we are creating a role. The string lower, string slug is the exact same as it is for permissions, as well as the display name and the description. But now we have to check that if permissions were selected to create this role, then we need to do something with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable and I'm just going to call it role. Role equals the role creation. So we're going to come down under this and we're going to say if request has selected permissions, which it should have, but we took off the validation on the front end. So this is something that we do need to check. If the request has selected permissions, then what do we want to do? Well, if that's the case, if there are selected permissions in the request, then what do we want to do? Well, we are using a package to handle this. We can do it through Laravel, but we have a package that is handling all of this that's going on with our rules and our permissions. So let's go and see in the documentation what we could potentially use. Right on the introduction page of our LARATRUST package, it gives us examples of things that we could do to make our lives a lot simpler. We have admin role where we can search for things, edit user permission, user where name edit, blah, blah, blah. We can add role, or we can do it this way. We've created the admin role up here. We've done some things to it, and now we can add the role to the user. Or you can also do it this way where you can add a one-off role to that user or what have you. The other thing is you can give permission, which is something that we can use, and you can use that to attach whatever this edit user permission is. And that's pretty much how we're going to be doing this. We can give permission, but since we're using multiple permissions, we can add the give permissions function from this package to give more than one permission. So let's go and see how that is going to look. In here, we can now take that role variable that we have and we can say give permissions. What permissions are we going to use? We didn't list any permissions or anything, but we aren't getting selected permissions coming in from Vue. So what we can do is collect all of them, and then we can say request selected permissions. And then from there, we're just going to take the ID because the ID is going to be what identifies which permission we're grabbing. And we'll just do it like that. The other part of that, though, is that we need to send this to an array so that it gets sent back to the database as an array. And we already have our database set up so that it will know what to do when it gets to the database. I'm going to make a space there. And then once that's done, we're going to just send it back to the roles index. So let's go and see in our index. We've set everything up in here. So we're grabbing from here the form where we are sending different properties back to the server so that the server can create the role, send it back to the database. The role will be in the database along with the permissions that we are bringing in as well. So I'm going to save that and let's go and try it. Here you can see I haven't done anything yet. This is still from before because I haven't refreshed the page, but from Vue, we are getting the selected permissions as an array, but we're breaking it up so that we can use it with our PHP on the backend. So let's go ahead and refresh. We'll go to create. We'll go ahead and pick a display name, slug, description, and we'll go ahead and choose some of the permissions. We'll go ahead and create, and now we're getting some kind of error for class app string not found. Correct, because I forgot to import it in our role controller. Fine, that's an easy one to fix. So in here, we can just go up to the role controller, and it's coming from here. Illuminate support string. Let's try it again. Create. Create. This particular table, it's not listed by recent to latest because we're not going to have many roles. I'm leaving them the way that they are, but as you can see, we do have a name for that. We have a display name for that. And then we also have a description. And these are the three permissions that we use. We're also displaying it in human readable form. And now that's what's coming in from the backend. If we open up edit, I wonder if we can see them. Yeah, we can. We have them in here, but we haven't set up any functionality to add any permissions or basically anything with the role. But we can see that that modal is now showing what our multi-select has because we created the variables where we are displaying all this stuff. So let's go ahead and set this up to edit, and then maybe we'll also set it up to delete as well at the same time. So now that we have everything set up in here, let's go ahead and do the web route. We'll start there for the edit and delete. This will be patch. This will be roles/role since we are leveraging root model binding. This will be update. This will be update. Now for the post, this is going to be delete. Roles, role. So we'll bring this down here as well. The function will be destroy. Our routes are done. Let's go into the controller and we'll deal with that one first. I'm just going to grab this stuff. And I'm going to paste it in this update here. and let's see what we can change. Well, the request validate is going to be the same, but as we did with the permissions, we can get rid of this last one, which is to have it be unique, because it doesn't matter if it's unique or not. We're just updating it. The description will be the same. Selected permissions will be the same. All of that is good, good, good. Now here, since we are using root model binding and we already have the role coming in, we don't need this variable here in this way. We don't need to call the model. So I'm going to take this, delete it, and now we can just say update on the role and leave that at that. The name is the same, display name is the same, so is the description. If request has selected permissions, then role, instead of giving the permission to the role, there's another one that we can use called sync permissions. And this sync permissions will also collect the request selected permissions. It'll also pluck the ID and send that to an array. And then that's pretty much all that is. We have our update function in our controller working. Let's go ahead and also do the delete, which is going to be very simple. We already have the role coming in. So all we need to do here is say role, delete, and then we can just return to route. Now, the nice thing about doing this too is when you're deleting it in this way, this package won't let you delete all of the roles. It'll just let you delete the specific role, and then any permissions associated with that role will also be taken care of by this. It's not that those permissions will be deleted from the database. They'll just be deleted in their association with this role. So we'll go ahead, save. And now the last thing that we need to do is in the index, we can come down and we have our open edit. We have fixed all of that already to create role. Now we can go ahead and uncomment all of this. And then the route will be roles. The ID is the same. Permissions the same. Role has been updated. And then we'll deal with this one. Well, let's just do it now. Are you sure you won't be able to revert this? Yes, yes, yes. Form delete roles. Role has been deleted. So now let's come back here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this because we did make some changes on the server. I'm going to go ahead and try to edit this one that we created. What can we do? Well, I'll just change everything in there, and then I'll remove one of these. In fact, I'll remove two of them. So now we should just have one. We should have a whole new name, whole new description, and just the one permission. So let's just see if we're going to get an error or not. The role has been updated. The name has changed. The description, all of that has changed. And now we only have the one permission. Let's go ahead and try to delete this. And I think I turned off that button. Let's go and take a look. I think I deleted, or I didn't activate the button. This will be delete role instead of permission. And let's try it again. So let's go ahead, delete this one. Are you sure you won't be able to revert this? Yes, delete. Okay, it's been deleted, and it has been deleted from our table. Let's go ahead, refresh, and make sure that all of that is still good. And it is. These are our original 5 roles that we had with their permissions listed, and that's pretty good. Now, something that I do want to do really quickly is that, yes, we do have the permissions for the roles, and we also are listing out all of these permissions individually within the modal, right? We have all of them in here. But the only thing is that if we open up the inspection tools and we open up the Vue Dev tools, we go to index. As you can see, let's take a look at the first one. These are the permissions that we're looping over in the modals. In these permissions, we are including the ID, the name, display name, description, created at. We don't need all of that to loop over it in a modal, which means we can cut down on some of these props coming in, which will be better for us in the long term because it's just not as big of a request as it is currently. Same thing with the roles. We have the roles coming in, which is fine. We can even cut that down if we wanted to, but we're also bringing in the permissions with those roles. And again, we are listing off everything within that permission, and we are also listing off the pivot table which is not something we actually need here. When we're displaying this, we only really need the name. We're only needing the name here because we're not doing anything with it here. In here, we're going to need the name, but we're also going to need the ID so that it's identified by this Vue-Multiselect dropdown that we have in here. What can we do? If we come back here and we go over to the role controller, we can really control what's coming in here. So as I said, we are bringing in the roles, we're bringing it in with permissions. These permissions, we only need the ID to make sure that it's identified so that when we're editing it down here, when we're doing what we need to do to update it, we are going to need that ID. So that's one field that we definitely do need. So in here, I'm going to put a colon, and then I'm going to put ID. The other thing we need from here is the name of those permissions, because we need to be able to display them. We're not using the display name to display them. We're not using the created at or anything else like that to display them. All we need is the name. So that's something that we can just make sure that we specify in here. When we are bringing in these roles with these permissions, we are only going to be using the permission ID and the permission name because those are things we absolutely need. The permissions that we're listing here, we can do something very similar where instead of the entire permission model, we can just grab the ID and the name because we're not even editing these permissions in here. So these are the only two things that we absolutely need to have. Let's go and check the Vue DevTools and see what we're getting now. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this and refresh this. Well, I need to close this. We'll open this back up, go to Vue, go to index, and again, we have the same permissions that we're looping over in our modal right in here. Everything still looks the same, but now if we open this, now we only have the ID and the name. We don't have the entire permissions model attached to that. If we come to roles, same thing. We don't have the entire permissions model attached to it. We only have the ID, the name, and then the relationship, which we're going to need for that in order for the package to be able to handle the adding and the dropping of the relationship to the table. The last thing that I do want to check is our validation. In here, we have create role. We just want to make sure everything is good. We don't have any permissions in here, and we don't really need to worry about the slug, but let's go ahead, fill it in, and we'll also fill in our permissions. Something that we can do too is add real-time validation. I didn't add that in here because this is a pretty well-stocked series, but it is something that you can add in here too if you wanted to do real-life validation using some package like Vue-Validate or Vvalidate or something like that and have that real-time validation. I don't really care personally, but I think to get you started, this is a good place to start with at least knowing how to set up validation. So that was the last one that we just created. Our validation worked okay. Let's open up edit and let's get rid of everything in here. Get rid of everything, get rid of that. And again, we have our validation in here for that. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.